Hey guys, this is Eric Vasquez here for Design Cuts, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Modern Designer's Professional Toolkit. Now there's a lot of great stuff in here, including some vectors, flyer templates, Keynote and PowerPoint presentations, a lot of realistic and cool looking mock-ups, and even some logo creation kit elements that you guys can use, along with a really great typeface. So today we're going to be using some of those elements to create a branding mock-up for a raw food bar called Sprouts. So to kick things off, go to the freebies folder, and inside of here you guys will see the logo shape EPS file. Now there's a couple of different versions here just because, if you guys don't have the latest version of Illustrator, if you're not using Creative Cloud, I've saved out a few other versions of it for older versions of Illustrator so you guys can follow along. So that will include, CS4, CS5, CS6, and CC. So go ahead and open it up and you should have our base shape for our logo. And it's basically this nice looking container here with a triangle on top and 3 lines on the bottom. So once we have this, we're going to go back to our freebie folder and we're now going to go ahead and open up the logo text file for whichever version of Illustrator you're using. And then all we're going to do is click and drag around all of this, or you can press Command A to select all, Command C to copy it, and then Command W to close out of the tab. Now I accidentally closed my shape here, so let me just open that back up. And now all we're going to do is press Command V and paste that in here. Now what you want to do from here is do another select all, Command A, and then up here in the top toolbar, choose the horizontal align center option. Now once you've done that, you may need to kind of eyeball it a little bit because our Sprouts text looks to be a little bit off-centered. So I'm just going to tap that over maybe once or twice with my arrows. And then I'm also going to center this horizontally. So I'm just going to hold the Shift key and move it up a little bit more just to center that visually. Now from here what we want to do is click and drag around our EST 2017 text, and we're going to warp this. So in order to do that, come up to the Object menu, come down here to Envelope Distort, and then choose Make with Warp. Now under the Style option here, we're going to go ahead and select Arc, which we already have, and we want to make sure that we're bending this horizontally. If I were doing it vertically, it would be going the opposite way, which doesn't really look very good. So leave that on horizontal and change the bend value here to about 30%, and then go ahead and hit OK. And now we have a nice little arc for our text. So from here, we're going to go ahead and add one other element to this logo. So go back to your freebie folder, and this time we're going to open up the Elements Editable Paths, and again with the whichever version of Illustrator you're using this for. Now press Command A to select all, Command C to copy, and then Command W to close out of this window. And then we can just press Command V to paste this in here. Now that we have our shape in here, I'm going to move it up top, just below this triangle. And I'm going to hold the Shift key and drag in from the bottom right-hand corner, just to scale this down a bit. And then use my arrows to maybe move it down a few times and over to the right. Now we can press Command C to copy it, and Command F to paste in front. From here, I want to reflect the shape, so I'll come up to the Object menu and choose Transform Reflect. Check off the preview box so you can see what's happening, and we want to make sure that we are flipping this vertically. Go ahead and hit OK. Then I'm just going to hold the Shift key and tap this over, and then release the Shift key and just use my arrows to get it a little bit closer. Now I'm going to zoom in, hold the Shift key, and just drag it over to the right, just so I can get these two diamond shapes in the middle here to overlap. Okay, so you have something like this. Now what we want to do is press the letter M on the keyboard to get our rectangle tool, hold the Shift key and drag out a square, a little bit smaller than the center shape here. And at the moment it looks like I just have a stroke, so if I need to swap the stroke in the fill color, hold the Shift key and press X, and you'll notice over here on your colors that when you do that, it's changing from an outline to a solid fill. So once you have black for the fill color, move your cursor over any of the 4 corners of this box, and then hold the Shift key and just rotate it 90 degrees. And that's just going to fit inside of here to fill in that shape. Once you've done that, click and drag around this whole shape here and press Command G to group them together. You could also come up to the Object menu here and choose Group. So now that we've done that, I'm just going to now center some of these elements. So I want to select this center shape here and center it with my container, my text, pretty much everything except for the Sprouts text here. So all I'm doing is holding the Shift key and clicking and dragging around each of these pieces. Now once I have everything selected except for the Sprouts text, I'm going to once again return to the top toolbar and choose Horizontal Align Center. Okay, now I can press Command A to select all and Command G, or come up here to the Object menu as I mentioned before and choose Group to group this entire logo together. Now at this point we're in pretty good shape, so all I'm going to do is save this logo out as a separate EPS file because we're going to need it a little bit later on in this tutorial. So now that I've saved my logo, I can go over and jump into Photoshop. Once you're in Photoshop, go ahead and create a new document. And let's make a document that is 3000 pixels by 3000 pixels so that it is a perfect square. We'll make the resolution 300 dpi. The color mode can stay RGB and the background contents can be black. And then let's just take this opportunity to name our file. So I'm just going to go ahead and call this Sprouts Raw Food Bar, and then press Enter or click Create down here at the bottom. So now that you have your new document, the first thing we want to do is unlock the background layer. So I'm just going to double click on it and rename it BG, and then I can press OK. And you'll notice that there's now no lock on this layer. Come down here and add a new layer on top, and let's just go ahead and call this BG Texture, like that. And the next thing we're going to do here is use a layer style. Now, I don't know if you guys have used layer styles before in Photoshop, but it's a really cool way to add some preset textures, patterns, and effects. So I actually have my Styles tab open over here on the right side above my Layers palette, but if you guys don't see that, you can always access it by coming to the Window menu and choosing Styles from the list. Now, once you have this open here, we're going to click on this 3-line icon on the upper right, or the hamburger menu, and we're going to come down and choose Load Styles. Now we're going to go to our freebie folder for this tutorial, and we want to choose the goldstyle.asl file and then hit Open. Now once you do that, you'll notice that there is a layer style in here. So I'm just going to click on that, and you'll see that it has actually added some effects to our layer, but at the moment we can't really see anything. And the reason for that is because our layer is currently empty. So as soon as we fill this with any color, we should see our layer style take effect. So a quick and easy way to do that is to just press Alt, Option, and Delete on the keyboard, and that will just fill this layer with whatever your foreground color happens to be, which in this case is this blue color. Okay, so now you can actually see this taking effect. But I want to actually modify this a little bit, so I'm just going to come over here and double click on the BG texture layer, click on this little FX icon in the lower left, and choose Color Overlay. Now go ahead and click on the fill color, make it solid black, and then change the blend mode from normal to color, and that's just going to make this entire texture or pattern in the background black and white or grayscale. So let's go ahead and add another instance here. Come back to the FX icon in the lower left-hand corner and choose Color Overlay one more time. Now for this color overlay, we're actually going to change the fill color value here to 007B76, which is this nice kind of blue teal color. And this time, change the blend mode from normal to multiply, and then hit OK. So you'll now see that we have this nice teal color kind of overlaid on our layer style. So at this point, just in case you guys haven't done so already, be sure to save your work before moving on. Go back to your freebie folder, and this time we're going to open up the box PSD, and you'll see that you have this nice blank box here. Okay, so if I go ahead and go over to my layers palette, you'll see that there's a group folder here called Box. And if I click this little arrow, there's a smart object inside that says double click to edit. Let's go ahead and double click on that. The first thing we're going to do once we're inside here is actually rotate this. So come up to the image menu, choose image rotation, 90 degrees clockwise, and then go back one more time and choose image, image rotation, and flip canvas horizontal. Now we want this box to be right side up because we want to apply our logo to it and have it be long. So we're actually going to have to play around with this a little bit just to get it to appear correctly, but it'll be really easy to customize once we get everything set up. So once you've done that, go ahead over here to your layers panel and double click on the place design / color smart object. Now inside of here, you should have nothing except for this color fill layer. So this is where we can basically go ahead and place our color. So I'm just going to double click on this, and let's go ahead and fill this with F59205, which is this nice orange color here. Okay, and once you've done that, again, come up to the image menu, choose image rotation, 90 degrees clockwise, go back, image rotation, flip canvas horizontal. And now what we want to do is come back into Illustrator and we're going to grab our logo from before. So press Command A to select all, Command C to copy it, and then Command and Tab to come back over into Photoshop. Now I can press Command V and paste this layer as a smart object. And this is going to bring our logo over. So before I press enter or anything like that to apply the changes here, I need to make this larger. So I'm going to move my cursor over any of these four corners, hold the Alt, Option, and Shift keys together to scale it out from the center, and then just drag to make this larger. All right, maybe somewhere about there looks pretty good. We can actually probably go just a little bit smaller. Okay, but once you're happy with the size of this, go ahead and press return on the keyboard. Okay, so we now have our logo placed in here. Let's hold down the Shift key and maybe just tap it up a couple of times, just so it's a little bit above the center line in our document. All right, what we want to do now is press Command S to save this. Now we can close out of this tab. And if I come back over here into my previous file, you'll see that the logo has been applied, but it's not appearing correctly. So let's just go ahead and figure out how we can fix that really quick. What I want to do here is make sure that I have my Smart Object layer selected and then press Command T to do a free transform. Hold the Control key and click on this image in the canvas. And now we're going to choose Rotate 90 degrees clockwise, hold Control and click once again, and choose Flip horizontal. And now your logo should be appearing right side up and reading from left to right. Okay, so once again, press Command S to save this. And now you can either close out of this tab manually by clicking on the X or by pressing Command and W on the keyboard. Okay, so here we go. We're back in our main box PSD. Now, again, there's a little problem here with our shadow, and that's because we need to correct that as well. So select the shadow layer, press Command T, hold the Control key and click, choose Rotate 90 degrees clockwise, hold Control and click once again, and flip horizontal. Now go ahead and press return, and if you'll notice, there's a little bit of this white edge just showing on the bottom. So all I'm going to do is just tap the up arrow maybe 1 or 2 times, and there you go. So now we can go ahead and click on this arrow next to the box group folder, and what we want to do is drag this entire folder over into our main document. So I'm just going to grab this tab here and move it to the side, grab my box group folder and hold the Shift key and just drag it into my file. Now I'm going to just come over back to this box for a second and just close out of it for the moment. And what I want to do now is make this larger. So again, if you remember how to scale things up or down from the center, we first need to press Command T to do a free transform, and then we'll hold the Alt, Option, and Shift keys together and drag outwards from any of the 4 corners of the bounding box. So I'm just making this a bit larger here, placing it roughly in the center of the design, and then pressing return to apply the changes. All right, somewhere about there looks pretty good, and so far we are in pretty good shape. Now at this point, I want to customize this box a little bit further before kind of decorating the rest of this scene and making the branding consistent. So let's once again go ahead and expand the contents of our box, double click on the Smart Object layer inside of here, and then one more time to go all the way down into the main part of the box that has our logo and the color fill. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is double click on the name of this logo layer here, and I'm just going to call it white. Okay, and the reason I'm doing that is because I want to double click on this layer, apply a color overlay, and I'm actually going to make it normal for the blend mode and change the fill color to solid white. Go ahead and click OK 2 times to apply the changes, and you should now just have a white version of your logo. Okay, but what we're going to do next is press Command J 2 times to make 2 more copies of our logo. Double click on the top copy, the name White Copy 2, and let's go ahead and change that to blue, and then double click on the middle copy and change this to red. Okay, so now I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to select the top copy and double click on it, come back over to my color overlay, and this time let's go ahead and change the fill color instead to 237770. And that's going to be that nice kind of teal color that we used earlier for our background. Go ahead and click OK twice to apply the changes. And now let's go ahead and double click on the red copy. This time we'll change the color overlay, as you might have guessed, to red. So for this, let's use 7D1C1C. All right, and then go ahead and click OK 2 times to apply the changes. Now at the moment, you're only going to see the blue copy on top. So what we're going to do now is apply a couple of layer masks so that we can determine which areas we want to reveal and which areas we want to hide for each of these respective colors. All right, so hold the Alt Option key and then come down here to the bottom of the Layers palette and click on the Add Layer Mask icon. And what that's going to do is apply an inverted layer mask. So what that means is that everything will be hidden or filled with black by default. Now, if I were to just add a normal layer mask, it would be filled with white, and I would be painting in here to decide which areas I want to hide. So now we're doing the opposite and filling the entire thing with black, and we're going to paint with white over any areas that we want to reveal. So press B on the keyboard to get your brush tool, and make sure that you have a solid white foreground color. If you don't, all you have to do is press the letter D on the keyboard to get your default colors, and then use the X key to toggle back and forth between the two until white is the foreground color. Now once you've done that, all we're going to do is brush over these shapes here, the triangle and this nice kind of geometric arrow shape that we've added in Illustrator. Okay, because we want these little pieces here to be blue, and we're also going to do the same for these 3 horizontal lines on the bottom. Now, once you've done that, come down to the red layer, click on the layer mask, and we're actually going to paint now on the main container shape all along the outside edge here with your brush. And again, I'm just using a solid white to paint in the areas of color that I want to see. Okay, so just take a few moments here, and I'm actually going to paint red over the raw food bar and the EST 2017 text so that the only thing left in white is our main Sprouts text. Okay, and if you look closely, there may be a little bit of overlap or a little bit of a white edge poking out in some of these areas. So I'm actually going to select the white copy, press the letter M on the keyboard to get my rectangular marquee tool. Now I'm just going to click and drag around the Sprouts text, and once I have this whole area selected, I'll just come down here and add a regular layer mask. So now we have our color version of our logo, and we're in pretty good shape. So what I'm going to do is I have my white copy selected. I'm going to hold the Shift key and click on the blue copy so that I have all 3 copies of my logo selected together. Press Command G to put them into a group folder, and then double click on the group 1 text and just change this to logo. All right, so now let's go ahead and maybe decorate this a little bit more to add a little bit of a background pattern to our design. To get started here, I'm just going to press the letter U on the keyboard, and if I come over here to my toolbar, you can see towards the bottom that I have the custom shape tool selected. So if I click on this shape and hold, you'll see that it's kind of nested here under these other tools. It's all the way at the bottom. So once you have this tool selected, come to your top toolbar here and take a look at this shape that we have. If I click on this down arrow, you'll see that we have all these other shapes inside that we can play around with. And if you want to browse through some of the other presets, all you have to do is click on this little gear icon on the top right, and you can take a look at any of these other shapes. You've got light bulbs, nature-themed shapes, objects, ornaments, symbols, and more. So for now, we're just going to be using a few of these basic shapes, the geometric shapes like the diamonds, the triangles, and maybe 1 or 2 of these other shapes as well. So to get started, I'm just going to hold down the Shift key, and all I have to do is click and drag out to create my first shape. Okay, so I'm just creating this white diamond here, and what I want to do is press Command T to do a free transform, and then maybe rotate it and move it over to the side, maybe scale it down just a little bit to make it smaller. Okay, and if I want to change the color of any of these, that's really easy to do as well. So now I'm just going to go ahead and create another new layer by pressing Command, Alt, Option, Shift, and the letter N, or you can just click on the new layer icon at the bottom of the Layers palette, and then go ahead and create another shape by holding the Shift key and dragging outwards. Now this time I'm going to rotate it in the opposite direction and maybe move it down here to the bottom. Now as I mentioned, if you want to change the color, what we're going to do is press the letter U, come up here to the top toolbar and click on this fill color. Now once you have this menu here, you can click on this color spectrum icon in the upper right, and now we can either use our eyedropper to sample the color, or we can manually enter a value. Then just go ahead and click OK, and you should see those changes reflected on the shape. So we're going to kind of repeat this by trying out some of these different shapes and just mixing it up by using a few of these colors from our design. So we may want to use some of these red colors in some spots, And we'll pretty much just, play around with it until we start to build up a nice little pattern or texture here. Now let's go ahead and try a different shape. So maybe this time I can use a triangle instead. I'll use this triangle outline, hold the Shift key and drag outwards. Click on the fill color, then the color spectrum icon here, and now let's sample a little bit of this red. Okay, so I can rotate it, maybe move it off here to the side so it's kind of going off of the page a little bit. And then if I want to, I can press Command J to duplicate that exact shape, press Command T to do a free transform, and then I can either resize it, rotate it, or scale it anywhere else throughout the design. All right, so let's continue. Now I can apply a few of these other shapes here. Let's go ahead and select this bold outline circle and maybe add a few of these. And you can either leave it, white, or maybe you want to change this one to blue or red so it doesn't stand out quite as much. Okay, because the white is really high contrast on this background, and we want most of the focus to remain on our text. Okay, you can also zoom out a little bit so you can get a better idea of what you're doing here. And then just continue on adding a few more of these shapes. And you'll notice here that if I want to change the fill color now, I also have these recently used colors. So all I have to do is select one of those if I want to use something that I just used recently. Okay, don't be afraid to play around with the scale a little bit. It's really good to have, some shapes that are larger, some shapes that are smaller, just to mix things up. Now let's see what other kind of shapes in here I can use. I like this kind of squiggly line shape here, the zigzag, so I'm going to select that. Hold down the Shift key, maybe put a few of these in here. It's just kind of a nice, fun element that I want to incorporate. And then, I can maybe change the color of it and just see how that looks. All right, so let's continue adding a few more of these geometric shapes using the diamonds, the circles, triangles, pretty much anything that you guys want to play around with and incorporate here. But you can already see that it's starting to come together pretty nicely. Okay, so now I'm just working a little bit faster because I'm just playing around with some of these colors and the positioning and placement of these shapes. Okay, but the idea here is to just kind of scatter them and place them randomly throughout the design. All right, you want to try to keep the colors fairly balanced as well. So in addition to kind of scattering these shapes, we're also trying to pay attention so that we don't have, too much of the same color right next to each other. All right, and if you guys at any point want to make a copy of an existing shape, all you have to do is hold down the Control key, click on the shape, and you'll navigate to it in the Layers palette, and then press Command J to duplicate it, Command T to do a free transform, and then you can just kind of resize it, reposition it, and place it wherever you like. All right, but that might save you a step so you're not just going back to create a new shape every single time. Okay, and then let's just add maybe another triangle positioned on the bottom here. All right, going off of the side here, and then maybe I'll just go ahead and change the color to white. Once you're happy with all of the shapes that you have here in your design, what we want to do is select the top shape, scroll down, hold the Shift key and select the bottom shape, and then press Command G to put them into a group folder. Double click on the Group 1 text and change the name of this folder to Shapes. Now from here, all we have to do is press Command S and then Command W once it's finished saving to close out of this window. Now you should be brought back to the previous PSD where we'll once again press Command S to save it and then Command W to close out of the tab. And now you should see your updated packaging design right here in our main document. And it's looking pretty cool and pretty fun with all of these shapes in here. So now we can begin adding some more freebies and other elements around our package. So let's go back to our freebies folder for a second. And I want to actually grab this tagline EPS file. So I'm just going to open this in Illustrator really quick. Press Command A to select all, Command C to copy it, and then Command Tab to come back over to Photoshop. And if you don't have Photoshop right next to Illustrator, you just press the Tab key one more time to go to the next icon, and then press Command V and paste this as a smart object. Now, before we apply the changes, let's just move this to the upper left-hand corner, and then go ahead and press Return on the keyboard. And now double-click on the layer and check off this color overlay option. Now, we don't want to fill it with red, so click on the fill color and just change it to white, and then click OK twice to apply the changes. Now we'll just double-click on the layer name and call this Tagline. Press Command A to select all, Command C to copy the text, Command G to put it into a folder, and then double-click on the folder name and press Command V to paste that name. So now we've just renamed our smart object and put it inside of a folder. And we can do the same thing with the box if we want to. You can name that whatever you like. Okay, and let's just go ahead and do the same thing with the background. So we actually don't even really need this BG folder anymore, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. Select the BG texture layer and press Command G. Double click on the group 1 name right there, and I'm just going to change this to background and then save my file. Alright, so we're now ready to begin decorating this scene a little bit more. So let's go back to our freebie folder, and we're going to begin adding some more objects. The first one I'm going to open up here is the corn PSD. And just like our box, all you have to do is expand this group folder, double click on the first smart object in here, double click on the place color / design smart object, and now for the fill color, we can go ahead and change this to maybe a nice orange. I think would work pretty well. So let's try F48B00, hit return, and then press Command S to save it, Command W to close, Command S to save this, Command W to close, and now collapse the folder, and I'm going to grab the entire corn group folder and drag it into my document. Now I want to make sure that it's below the box layer so that it appears like it's behind it, and then I'm going to press Command T to do a free transform and just kind of rotate this counterclockwise a bit. Maybe place it somewhere along here towards the top. Now I actually want to make my box just a little bit smaller, I think, so I'm going to select it and press Command T, and then once again hold Alt Option and Shift and drag inwards from any of the 4 corners. Okay, so all I'm doing here is kind of playing around with the size and rotation of the corn. I want to place it somewhere along the top here at an angle to just start to make the design feel a little bit more dynamic. So once you're happy with that, navigate back to your freebie folder, and we can now begin adding some more elements. So let's use the same color here for our grapes. I'm going to double click to go inside the smart object. We're just going to use the same hex value here by pressing F48B00, and then go ahead and press OK, save it, close it, save it again, close it again. And now I'm going to grab this whole grape group folder and I'm going to bring it into my document. So I can close the corn, grab the grapes, and just drag them in here. Now for these, I think I'm going to bring them down a little bit so they're kind of in the lower left-hand corner, and maybe just rotate them a bit as well. Now you may notice that these look pretty shiny right now, and I actually kind of want to tone that down. So if I want to modify that, I can just come back into the smart object here. You'll see that there's a light and a shadow layer. So I'm going to select this light layer, and instead of 100, tone that down to 50%, and then save it and close out of it. And you'll now see that these are a little bit less shiny in our main document. I'm going to come back to my freebie folder, this time open up the cucumber, go inside the smart object, inside the place color design smart object, and then this time for the fill color, let's try 00716B, which is our teal color. Now I'm going to press Command S to save it, Command W to close this window here. And again, I'm going to select this light and maybe just tone it down a little bit to around 70 or 80%. All right, and once I'm happy with it, press Command S and Command W to close out. Now I'm going to grab the entire group folder and bring this into my main document. All right, at the moment it looks like I dropped it inside of the grape folder, so in order to fix that, all I need to do is press Command and the right bracket, and that's going to move it outside of whatever layer is below. Now I still can't see it, so I'm going to press Command T to do a free transform, and I see that it's off to the side here. So I'm now going to hold the Shift key and drag outwards from the bottom right hand corner, then maybe just rotate it a bit somewhere off to the side here. All right, and then press return once you're happy with the size and the placement of your object. I'm now going to open up the Pepper PSD, and apply that same kind of teal color. So hopefully you guys are getting the pattern now. You're kind of seeing the way that this works and how easy it is to really update the colors and the designs on these mock-ups. And these are some really beautiful mock-ups that you guys can use. You can do a lot with these and really customize them however you like. I'm going to close out of that, grab this pepper shaker and drag it in here into my file. Okay, and let's go ahead and maybe now bring in our plate. And I'll once again use that teal color, double click on the smart object, double click again, and change the fill color 00716B. All right, save it, close it by pressing Command W, save it again, Command S, and then Command W once it's finished to close out. And now grab the entire group folder and just drag it into your file. Now I want to place this towards the bottom, so I'm going to press Command T and just kind of move the plate down here towards the lower right part of my image. And it's okay if the plate goes off of the workspace a little bit. That actually kind of creates some nice energy by kind of, making it feel like there's more going on outside of the canvas here. Now let's go back to our freebie folder, open up the fork PSD, and this one I'm just going to bring in as is. So I just want this white fork here. And if you can't see it, remember, press Command T to do a free transform, and then kind of drag it down here to the bottom. And I'm going to hold the Shift key and just rotate this so it's going a long ways below the box. Come back to my freebie folder, and now I'll open up the orange peel, which is actually like a full color version of this orange peel. So I like the color that we have there, so I'm just going to drag this in as is, press Command T, move it over here to the side, and just rotate it a bit, maybe shrink it down a little bit as well. All right, so as you go, don't be afraid to change, the size and the placement of any of these objects here within your design. We just want to tweak this a little bit more and get everything to feel nice and balanced. So let's go ahead and grab our avocado PSD, come inside here, and we're actually going to change this one maybe to the orange that we used initially for our grapes and for the corn. All right, so if you remember, that was F48B00. Go ahead and press return, save it, close it, and let's also dim down the lights a little bit more and maybe reduce the opacity to around 70 by pressing the number 7 on the keyboard. And then once you're happy with it, press Command S to save it, Command W to close it. Now collapse the folder and bring the whole avocado here into your file. Now for this, I actually want it to look like the avocados on the plate. So if you remember before, when I showed you guys how to move the layers up and down in your layers palette, all you have to do is hold down the Command key and press the right bracket to move it up in the layer stack, or Command and the left bracket to move it down. Now from here, I'll press Command T to do a free transform, and maybe just make it a little bit larger by holding the Shift key and dragging outwards a bit. And then I'm just going to rotate this avocado counterclockwise, move it down here, and just play around with the position a bit. So at this point, our design is all set up. We've created this really cool raw food bar branding mock-up. Now this is a really great bundle. It's got tons of great stuff in this. This is just a small sample, and one way that you can use these elements to really make your stuff look professional and cool. So I strongly encourage you guys to go on over and check that out at Design Cuts. It's really a steal right now, which you guys can pick up for about 29 bucks. And just after playing around with some of these elements, I can tell you that I'm very excited about these, and I had a lot of fun creating this design today. So I hope that you guys enjoyed the tutorial. Thanks for watching. This is Eric Vasquez, and we'll see you next time.